Ashley, I want to introduce you to the Genius Makers class. Last time you spoke to the entire organization, it was such a wonderful discussion. Some of my favorite quotes came from that discussion, actually. Anybody want to share a couple? I know mine was
truth above all.
Truth above all. Anybody else? What was it? The hippocampus? Come on. Let's get some. What else?
How about feeling one way and acting another?
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
It's actually one of my favorites.
We use that every single time we talk about emotion.
Well, every time I talk to you, at least, right?
Well, I have to.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. I practice that. But Ashley, this is our leadership class. It's comprised of every single department, team members from every department that have elected on their own that they want to discuss leadership topics. They want to self-improve, and we're on the mission together to learn. And so this is that learning environment. We come together twice a month, as you remember. And we enjoy talking about leadership topics. If you guys remember, those of you that were with us last time Ashley spoke, literally set us on a path that we were so grateful for. This learning path of understanding what these leadership principles are and to open them up and discuss them as a group. Ashley, to give you a little color on what Ashley does and who she is if you haven't met her before in the past. She's an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, a YouTuber, startup founder, and an author. Done plenty of presentations. You can catch her online, check her. I know that if you take a look at TEDx, she's got a great talk on TEDx, and we're just really thrilled to have her back. Please help me welcome Ashley Zahabian.
Yay!
Welcome
Ashley.
Welcome back. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's so cool to have like a group that knows like part of my quotes and like is like using them a little bit, which makes it so much easier for me to come in and just like be myself and speak because you guys already know like, you know, kind of a little bit about how I am. So that's awesome. I'm really excited to be here. I love this group. I could speak to you guys every month. It would be enjoyable. You know, I think, you know, we had spoken, Arash and I, about different topics that we thought was really interesting. And there's really two that I want to focus on today. So the second one kind of focuses, it's very similar to the stuff that we spoke about last time. It's just like, you know, merged into different aspects of our, you know, career-wise in life. And then this first one, I think, is something that I've never touched on with you guys. Ever since I last spoke to this group, I took up some research at Columbia University, and my research had really surrounded the question of, you know, what is emotional intelligence and why is it that people really struggle, you know, having it? Because it's not necessarily, it's emotions, right? We all have emotions. Why is it that we all experience emotions quite similarly, but one kind of gets it and has empathy and has all these other things and somebody else doesn't? And how do you acquire those things? And so there are aspects of empathy and being able to understand your own emotions and being able to, you know, really be intelligent about emotions. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. And so the best way for me to, I guess I'll start this by defining emotional intelligence, because it is what you had mentioned before, which is like feeling one way and acting another for a better outcome. That's absolutely the case. We have emotions and you can feel whatever you want. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to act on whatever we want, right? So as humans, there's two things that drive our behavior. It's either our emotions or our logic. Okay, that's what makes us different than any other organism, is that we have this prefrontal cortex that allows us to comprehend the world in a very different way and to have a conscious aspect to our life. And so emotions are not, you know, you look at like a dog, or you look at animals, and you look at like, you know, fish, and you look at all these other organisms that you see, even cells, they're driven by, you know, nature. They're driven by emotions and things of that sort. But we as humans are considered the intelligent, you know, group because of the fact that we can make our own decisions based off of logic. And that's something that every adult, you know, can experience. And so there's no excuse to not exercise that. Right. So when we see people that are constantly acting on their emotions and it doesn't line up with any sort of logic, that's somebody who just lacks emotional intelligence. That's simply what the definition is. Okay, so yes, being logical when you approach other people means that you deploy empathy, because if you want a good outcome in working with that person, then you have to consider their feelings. That's being logical, right? So this idea of being empathetic is not necessarily being overly emotional or being more emotional or more this. It's actually being extremely logical. In fact, there's something in our lab that we call intellectual empathy, which is just as effective as emotional empathy, right? Emotional empathy is when, you see a homeless person and you're like, oh my gosh, my heart goes for that person, right? Intellectual empathy is when you don't feel it in your heart, but you know the right thing to do is to help out, right? You might not feel it, but you're like, hey, I want to be a good person today, so I'm gonna, help out here. That's intellectual empathy. There's the same effect, right? So regardless of whether you're using, emotion or logic to get to that conclusion, the beauty of logic is that it considers emotion. Okay, so when you're using your logic, you can see emotion. When you're just using emotion, logic goes out the window. So when you're an emotional being, you're making 50% decisions. You're not seeing the full picture. When you're using your logic, you're using 100%, right? So that's why being logical is beneficial. That's why you get better outcomes in being a rational, logical person. That doesn't mean that your logic never lines up with your emotions. Sometimes it's, a good thing to be emotional and to express those emotions. But if you're acting on emotion and it doesn't line up with your logic, you definitely want to consider, is this a good decision? So going back to my work and how we ended up defining emotional intelligence, I just used the term itself, and I just said it's really just being intelligent about how emotions work. It's knowing when you're feeling emotions, knowing what it could be doing to you, right? Like if you're feeling, you notice that you're getting anxious, being intelligent of what anxiety can do can help you navigate a situation when you're anxious, right? So when I'm anxious, I know that I'm going to be hypersensitive. I know that maybe I'm going to be looking at the people around me and maybe being a little bit extra judgmental. I know that my reality is blurred. I know that I'm going to feel all these sorts of, my adrenaline is up, right? I know my heart rate is up. So when I get, I get anxiety and all of a sudden I start feeling like something's wrong with my heart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart, like, am I sick? Am I that? No, I'm intelligent about, anxiety, and I know that that's what it does to your heart, right? So when you know and you're intelligent about emotions and what they do and how they manifest symptomatically, you just don't let them drive your behavior anymore. And that's really the intellectual part of emotional intelligence, right? And so a lot of research historically and in other books that you're going to pick up, on emotional intelligence, they'll tell you like some people are born with it, some people are not. You can develop it. How do you develop it? Well, leadership is this and this. Like the reality is, you got to know how emotions work. That's how you develop it. It's a very logical process. It's a very educational, intellectual process to develop emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, in order to understand emotions, we have to understand them from a scientific perspective. Okay. So when we look at somebody who gets angry, instead of saying something like this person's annoying, like why does this person have anger issues, so on and so forth. The way that, and like I said, Arash and I kind of spoke about this, is that there's a difference between a symptom of something or the root problem. When let's say you have COVID and you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, I notice I'm coughing and I have a fever. And so they give you cough medicine and they give you Tylenol and they send you home. Would you think that that's like a good doctor?
No.
No, because they didn't tell you what's wrong with you. They just said, oh, you have a fever and a cough, well, take this medicine and, treat the symptoms, right? And the symptoms might go away. You might feel better in the moment, but the underlying virus is still there, okay? So same thing if you have like an infection, right? You have an infection, all of a sudden you're coughing, because when you have an infection, a lot of times if it gets really bad, your oxygen is not traveling through your blood correctly, so people will start to cough. And the doctor, again, gives you cough medicine, right? But the infection is still, the underlying, there's an infection. And if you don't treat the infection, you can have organ damage. It can turn into all sorts of complications, right? But at the root of the problem is if you don't treat the root, it's going to get worse, okay? So with that said, there's a huge difference between the root of a problem and the symptoms of a problem. If you are a doctor and you noticed you had a fever and gave you Tylenol and discharged you, you would question his credibility immediately. A good doctor doesn't only treat the symptoms. They do treat the symptoms, but not only the symptoms, right? A spike in temperature would also pose the question as what is causing the spike in temperature? Why is this person's body rising in temperature to fight something off or kill something, right? So they go straight directly to the root. They'll treat the symptoms just so there's no complications, but the underlying treatment happens in the root, okay? Emotions are very similar. When I'm working in the lab and we look at the brain, we look at chemistry, we take blood tests, we do all sorts of things. And when we're doing this type of work, we don't look at emotions as a choice. We look at emotions in terms of what are people's cortisol levels? What are people's adrenaline levels? What are people's norepinephrine levels? All sorts of the dopamine, serotonin, all these chemicals that are happening, right? That's how we understand a person's emotional state. Whether it's depression, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's anxiety, whether it's anger issues, right? We're looking at different chemicals moving in the body that can show us why these symptoms, behavioral symptoms, are happening, okay? So somebody who's really angry often has an imbalance of adrenaline and an imbalance of cortisol levels because they're highly stressed. They'll have all sorts of, imbalances within the body. It's completely off of equilibrium. Okay, when you look at somebody who's sick medically, you'll see the same thing that happens. Like for example, somebody who's diabetic is going to have glucose levels that are off. Somebody who's anemic is going to have iron levels that are off, right? So somebody who has a nutritional deficiency and is really just like fatigued all day might have a vitamin deficiency, right? We pull a blood test to look at this stuff. Emotions are no different. We can see emotions on a clinical exam. And so the point of me saying this is to when you recognize emotions are taking place in you or somebody else, it is really important that you go into the situation with let me not judge the symptoms and let me find the root cause. That should be your first question when you deal with your own emotions or when you deal with someone else's emotions. What is the root cause of this problem? Why are our behavior is literally just symptoms of what's going on inside. The same way when you cough, and the same way when you're tired, and the same way when your face becomes pale because you're not getting certain nutrients, and you're sick, and you have a fever, and you're sweating, and your temperature goes up, right? Those are all symptoms, okay? Anger, sadness, crying, frustration, right? Those are all symptoms of what's going on inside. So when that aspect of my research kind of came about, it changed the way that I view people, right? So now on, when I see somebody who's just like sitting there like all angry, you can just see in their face they're just like moody, or they're just simply acting like a bitch, like just being rude. I don't take it in a way.
We call that Kevin, Ashley. We call that Kevin around here.
Oh, you're acting like Kevin?
Yeah, you're acting like Kevin. Yeah.
Is anyone in here named Kevin?
That'd be me.
That would be him.
What did you do? What did you do?
We don't have a Karen, so
what did he not do?
We don't have a Karen.
All right, guys, when you see people act like Kevin, like you have to like at some point kind of go, what's clinically going on? Right. So you see people act in all sorts of ways, and most importantly, you want to pay attention to yourself. Like when you notice that you're acting in a certain way, or you have a short, fuse, or something's going on, and you're really impulsive. You're not patient. What's going on? Okay, they're going to be caused by two things. One is something physical that I can see on a blood test, something that I can see on an MRI, something that I can see on a chemistry test. Okay, and the second thing that causes it is the mind. In our lab, we separate the mind and the brain. The brain is a world of chemistry, right? It's pretty much made of a bunch of synapses and neurons and all this chemistry that goes on, okay? That's stuff we could see on a test. If something is wrong physically with the brain, like the structures of the brain, like you got 6 concussions and all of a sudden there's damage to the brain, or there's scar tissue around the brain, these are things that you really can't change, right? Things like, dementia has been incredibly difficult to change because there's a lot of structural, like the brain shrinks. You can't really undo that, right? But then there's situations where it's not the brain and it's the mind. And that really goes under memory. And that's about it. It's all memory. What you put into the brain is going to be what you get out of the brain, okay? Which is why when we deal with such behavioral issues, whether that's in a business and you're dealing with clients, whether it's in a business and you're managing people, whether it's in a business and you're working with a colleague that's pissing you off, you have to understand all behavior. I don't care how bad the situation is. I don't care if somebody, maybe even like stole from your company, right? Whatever that, even if it gets you so angry and you're like, what is wrong with this person? It's coming from 2 places, the mind something that they're putting in their brain, or it's coming from some sort of like chemistry, right? Which is they have an imbalance that's causing them to do something. There's no other reason for somebody to have a symptom that is so off in society other than them being sick because of one of those two things, okay? So that should change the way that you view people completely. It gives you so much more patience in dealing with people because you're going to want to go to the root problem. Is this a chemical issue? Is this a brain issue? Or is this a mind issue? Okay. 90% of the time, probably even more, it's a mind issue. And that's beautiful because mind issues we can change. Mind issues we can completely manipulate in a beneficial way. Okay. Which is why almost every single psychological disorder known on planet Earth is treated with something called cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, and it comes from the cognition, which is your prefrontal cortex, right? That's called your cognition. The reason it's called cognitive behavioral therapy is because your cognition drives your behavior. And there's therapy for that. So cognition is made up of all the things that you put into your brain. It can be made up of facts, it can be made up of memories, it can be made up of all sorts of things. But usually memories are just decoded into the brain as facts. So for example, when I was younger, I was raped. True story. And when I first got out of that situation, I had all these facts that I was putting into my brain. So I took a memory and I decoded that as like, men are bad, men are dangerous. You know, walking alone in the street is a dangerous thing to do. I started like getting all these facts, and I would like that kind of like trained my brain to think. So then obviously that affects my behavior. If I believe that men are bad, then I'm not going to hang around men. If I believe walking on the street is bad, I'm not going to go out, right? So it drives my behavior. But cognitive behavioral therapy is write down those facts and let's challenge them. Because clearly your input is leading to a bad output, okay? So how do you change your life and how do you change your outcomes to become more emotionally intelligent? Well, memories are the most emotional thing you go through. They're your experiences, okay? So those memories are going to drive the facts that you put into your brain. And our brain is an equation. It's 2 + 2 = 4, okay? So if you're trying to get 4, then you have to put 2 + 2 in on the other side. But a lot of times our experiences take 2 + 2 and makes it 1 + 7. And then all of a sudden we're like, why am I not getting 4? Why am I not getting the result that I want? Well, because the input in your brain is incorrect, right? You can call that trauma, you can call that just bad experience, you can call that upbringing, you can call that all sorts of things, right? All of our experiences in life create these facts. This is when I came up with how I live my life, which is, I mean, you guys probably know this already, is principles. I started to revamp everything I lived by. And I started to say, I need to take all the facts that I live by, and I need to make sure that they're correct. Because if I expect all these good outcomes in my life, then my input has to be correct, okay? So what I did is I took time, and I highly suggest you all do this, whether it's in a group together or on your own. I took every aspect of life, family, finances, my future career, not just my finances, but my future career, my relationships, my family life, my health, my happiness, my patience, my confidence, everything you could think of, my mental health. And I wrote down my outcomes that I was getting in my life. So financially, I was like, oh, I'm not really where I want to be. I feel like I should be doing better than this. And I would write that down. I'd write that outcome out and be like, I'm not happy with this outcome. And then I would look at like, you know, my relationships, and I'd be like, well, you know, I'm really doing well, but for some reason my partners tend to not, you know, be who I want them to be. Like I'm not getting the people I want. So why is that happening? Again, outcome, don't like what that's happening. Then I would go to like my family life. And I'm like, I really, really love my family life. I have a great family, but I don't really like this. Oh, why is that happening? That shouldn't be happening. Wrote it down. So I wrote down all these outcomes that I didn't like. And I was like, hold on. If my input was good, there's no reason for my output to be bad. That doesn't make sense. That's not how the brain works. The brain literally drives your what you put into the brain directly drive your behavior. So then I started coming up and I started researching and challenging, you know, what do I live by that's causing this? Why am I not getting the results that I want? So I'd go to my relationships and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm realizing that like I give so much and I have no boundaries. So I basically put up with bad behavior. So therefore I can't be upset that I'm getting bad behavior because I keep thinking that I'm supposed to keep getting, okay, well that doesn't work. Let's challenge that thought. If that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, what am I supposed to be doing? What does lead to a good result? And I would sit there for hours and revamp and revamp and revamp. And then I learned over time what those principles were to get good outcomes in my life. And it was so important. That's how you treat. Like you think of like medicine treating certain diseases and underlying causes. 90% of psychological and behavioral issues are coming from the mind. And the mind is built off of experiences and facts. And if you don't, as corny as this sounds, if you don't sit there and recorrect the facts that you're living by, your behavior is going to be shit. Like it just will. And you're not going to realize it because it feels real to you. Like they're facts to you, right? So unless you sit there and really challenge them from an objective place, you're living a very clouded life because you have no control over your experiences. You have control over how you respond to them. But if you don't take time to sit there and choose how you respond to them, then it's going to respond for you. And then you're living a life that completely out of your control, okay? So we don't want to do that. Just like with our health, we don't want to just completely let go and never check in and see, hey, is my health okay here? Is my mind okay here? Like, well, what's going into my mind? Just like we check in our body, we get a blood test every year, or we, go to the dentist every, twice a year to make sure our health is good. You got to do the same thing with your mind, because that is all your behavior. That is all your outcomes. If you don't check in on how your mind is doing and what's being put into your mind, just like you want to eat healthy and put good things in your body, you want to do the same things with your mind, right? So if you don't do that with your mind, you get shit. That's what you get. You get a life of shit, all right? And so you can do the same thing with your business too. Like if you're like, well, I want to be doing financially well and this and that, and you're not doing it, right? I would question why. Do I believe, and this the most common one that I see with my clients is they believe that success is supposed to come easier. I don't know where they get it from, but it's just a subconscious belief that I see 90% of my clients have it. Like they're just like, well, I believe I'm not supposed to work that hard, or I believe I'm on this. And it's like, where did you get, like, why? What experience led you to believe that? And then a lot of times it's social media. Well, I see so many other people making money, so it makes me feel like, I could be making money easier. And then you really have to question that. Like, is that realistic though? Is it? Like really sit there and question it. Is that realistic? Or am I supposed to be working 5 times harder to get what I want? Like those are all sorts of things, these underlying belief systems, and I always say the best way to get what you deserve, like get what you want in life, is to deserve it. So you have to know what is deserving of the life you want. What does that require? And are you living by those belief systems? Or are you saying to yourself, hey, this is supposed to be easier, or this, like I get so many people who are like, I want to have like a really lovely marriage and a really good relationship and a really good this. And I'm like, okay, but no offense, but like, you're not really a catch. Like, why do you think you deserve that? Like, what are you doing that makes you think you deserve a good man or woman? Like, you're not really that big of a catch. Like, there's nothing different about you that's the Joe Schmo that's over there. Right? So if you never question that, like, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, what are you doing that deserves to be a millionaire? Let's put some reality into perspective. Do you know how few people in this world, out of all the people in the world, are millionaires? Do you know what a small percentage of people are millionaires? So all of a sudden you think you deserve to be a millionaire? Who are you? Like, why you? Did you work for it? Like, if you want to get what you want to get, you have to deserve it. That's the easiest way to get what you want. You'll get it. If you deserve it, you'll get it. But there's no way around that. Okay? So, and that goes for all sorts of things. Like, I want to be a likable person. Well, then stop talking about yourself 24/7. Oh, but like, it just kind of comes out. Okay. Do something about it. Like if you want to be a likable person, there's a sacrifice on that side. Right? So start thinking. So for me, like I used to be like that. Like I always was so excited about my ideas and my this. And I realized I'm like, why aren't people like wanting to listen? I'm like, well, they don't give a shit, Ashley. They literally don't give a shit. Right? Like they don't. So I switched that around and I switched that input. I'm like, oh, well, if I want to be likable, this is the fact. Being likable requires listening, not talking. And I wrote it down and I made sure I worked on it. And in every conversation I went in, I started listening. And then guess what? I had tons of friends who I got more invites places. People wanted to hang out around me. They wanted to do business with me. They felt comfortable talking to me. And all of a sudden I had real friends and I felt better. My outcome was better because that was the outcome I was trying to get all along. I was trying to get good friends by impressing everyone. Nobody gave a shit. Literally no one. Right? Like I thought that was my underlying belief. I thought being successful makes people want to be your friend. No, being successful makes people want to use you. Listening and caring about others and investing in others makes people want to be your friend. And so I moved my behavior once that belief changed. Okay, so those are the types of things that you really have to question. That in itself is emotional intelligence. It's not this fancy leadership-y, like, you know, yeah, it is leadership. You want to have leadership, but it's principles, living by principles, and like really questioning, like, how have my emotions changed the truth? Be intelligent about your emotions. They change the truth. Your emotions will manipulate the hell out of your reality. And if you do not check in with that, then you're just living an emotional, like you're just living an emotional life. You might think you're the most successful businessman on planet Earth, and you're like, I'm Mr. Logical over here because I am, making 500K, and this douchebag is only making he's working a 9 to 5, only making $40,000. So I'm, logical over here. And it's like, well, you keep talking about yourself. That's not so logical. Nobody cares. That has zero effect on me. I don't care how much you make. Like, in reality, I don't. It has nothing to do with me. Right? So that's not so logical to sit there and talk about yourself, because the outcome you want is to be liked. You don't want to be rich and broke and by yourself, like depressed. Nobody wants that, right? So you have to write down, you can either start with your own outcomes, or another way that I've done it with some of my students is I'll actually tell them, write down, and we should do this actually. Like I should give you guys like 3 minutes to write down, like, what are the 3 outcomes in your life that you want that you're not getting. So let's do that. I'm gonna play some piano study music or whatever, and I want you to write down the 3 greatest outcomes that you want in your life and have wanted, but just aren't getting. Okay? So I'm gonna play some music and take some time to write that down. All right. Does anyone want to share?
I want to be a scratch golfer.
Okay. You sure you gave up on being a bitch?
No, I'm really good at that. I'm good there.
Professional at that, Ash.
I can do a seminar on that one.
All right, so that was your top one. Is that the only thing you had on there?
Scratch golfer and be retired are the 2 I came up with.
Cool. And what do you think being retired requires?
I haven't thought about that, quite frankly. First of all, it retires money, of course, and a desire, I would assume, or other options to spend the time. That's where the scratch golf comes in.
You're almost at the right age.
I am certainly almost at the right age.
What Like, what does that mean to you? Like, how much would you need?
How much would I need to cash-wise to retire?
Yeah.
I have not thought about it, but I would venture to say if I retired now, I would need. How old am I? Ben? 20.
Almost
I'd
20.
I'd need at least $3 million.
And do you feel that you're on track to do that by the time you want?
No, I wanted to retire 20 years ago.
Okay, so what do you think that the $3 million requires? What kind of work ethic does that require?
Well, it requires discipline in saving, first of all.
Yep.
And discipline in not being the consumer that I am.
Yep.
Things of that nature.
So what makes you feel like, what do you think your underlying belief is around that goal and why you're not achieving it?
That's not important.
You think money's not important?
No, the goal is not important. That's not an important goal today. When I see something shiny new that I want to buy, that's more important than that goal.
Is it?
Probably not. It is at that moment, though,
Why?
because I have no discipline.
Okay. So what underlying belief do you think that you can implement that would alter that behavior?
Just keep my focus on the goal and have discipline to stay attuned to it.
So that's an action. So I'll give you an example. So like when I save, money and invest money, I think to myself, instead of thinking like, I want to retire this and that, that's a goal. But again, principles are facts. Okay. So for me, I think about things like what you can do with money and why money is important. And to me, that fact will drive my behavior much further than anything I can purchase. Right? So saying something along the lines of like, being able to have money buys health. Like when I get older, I don't want to worry about my health. I want to be able to have an in-house doctor that can check me every month. So everything's preventative and everything. Right? So it buys my health, it buys me time. It buys me my life back. I want that. Right? And that's a fact. Money can buy that. Like people who are getting checked on a monthly basis, you can add 5-6 years to your life. I want those. Right? So things like that, like you want a fact that you're like, okay, because I know this is a principle I live by, that's important. Now my behavior is gonna follow with that because that is a core belief of mine. Right? So if you believe that, like, for example, stealing is bad, then you just don't steal. You just don't. Like if you know it's bad and you genuinely in your heart believe that as a core principle, you don't even think about stealing. Right? But if it's like I don't want to steal, right? Now it's a goal. I don't want to steal. Then you might steal. Right? It's like I don't want to, but right? But if you're like, no, stealing is bad, it's not me. That's stealing is horrible and it makes for horrible people. Immoral people. Right? Then I'm not going to steal. So you want to phrase it in a way that's like a fact.
I will have to give that some thought.
Yeah, we'll come back around. Does anybody else want to share?
Now that we know that you're going to dissect us,
Everybody's quiet.
but I'm down.
I already seen my shrink this week.
I've been talking to all my inner circle about it in the more recent months. Is I really, really want to be healthier.
Okay.
I need to be healthy.
So you feel like you're not healthy?
I feel like my health is not as good as it was, and I can feel like I need to address it before it becomes an issue.
Sure. And so what are the beliefs underneath your life around that area?
I'm sorry?
What are your core beliefs under that?
Ooh, it's a little general, but my core beliefs are, you got to be healthy to live a long, prosperous life.
But because you're not getting that outcome, because if you really believed that like being healthy was going to drive you to what you wanted and it's one of the most important things, you'd be doing it. but you're not.
Okay.
So what other core belief do you think is there that might be conflicting with it?
A core belief that could be conflicting with it.
I can give you an example of one that, like, off the top of my head, would be something like,
I
not
like to rest.
you
I like
what?
to relax.
So relaxation is important, or
Yes. I like to decompress and just, lay low a little bit.
there you go. So what's a new core belief that you can combat that one with? That can
A
serve.
bunch of burpees? I don't know.
That it has to be like a core belief that benefits both of those outcomes, because you believe in both of them.
I don't know.
It could be something along the lines of, like, relaxation for more than an hour or whatever is no longer serving its purpose, right? Like,
It's actually counterproductive.
it's counterproductive. Yeah, like sitting all day, you're sitting there all day, or sitting there for 3 hours, and that kind of thing. Or maybe relaxation becomes counterproductive when it's more than once a week. And
Or
then
I
that
could find a
becomes-
time to relax my mind while I'm working out and know what it's.
Yeah. Right. So you want to revamp your core beliefs. You really want to think about what are they? Like, why is it that, does anybody else, can anybody else relate to that one? Because I feel like a lot of people relate to that, like wanting to be healthier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think, like, your core beliefs are under that? Maybe it can also inspire each other on that one.
Yeah, no, my problem is not that I do want to be healthy, and I try to strive for that. Like, I wrote down I want 6-pack abs, and I'm like working out 6 days a week, but I don't have that result. What the hell is blocking it? And I know there's, my daughter likes to eat sweets and I eat off her plate. I know that that's not a good idea, but I do. I finish up her ice cream every night. That's probably not going to get me the result I want, but it's what I do.
So here's the thing. When we say I want 6-pack abs, that's not strong enough to drive behavior. Because it's not a belief, it's not a core value, it's not a principle, right? It's not a fact. It's like, I want abs. Yeah, I want $6 million too. Like, that's not gonna do anything for me saying I want it, right? What will is like first of all, the question would be why? Why do you want 6-pack abs?
Because I'm trying to lift my shirt up to my wife and show how.
He wants to be like Dez.
Okay.
So Ashley, I think to piggyback on Arash's and Robert's point of view, first and foremost, I don't want you to think that I'm not interested.
Sure.
It's just half of my face is numb, and I actually have a appointment at 1:30 today with the orthopedic surgeon. But I think is that when the pain of comfort, there's that passing paths, right? So if Arash's lower back started to hurt to the point where his doctor said you need to strengthen your abs to support your back, that might change belief system a little bit, right?
Well,
Like right
yes,
now,
100%.
I can't relax and decompress like Robert likes to because the pain and the discomfort is already bad. So now I'm forced to go do something, right?
Yes, and I think that's a wonderful point, because that's what I was getting at when I said, why is it that you want abs, right? Saying that you want something is not, it has to be a fact. So for me, I'm an athlete, okay? So I compete heavily in figure skating. So for me, my core belief is I don't want abs to look a certain way. I want abs so I can perform. I need abs. Like in order to do a triple axel, I need to be lean. Like you really can't do it if you're not lean, right? So for me, that fact drives my behavior. Okay. Another fact that could drive my behavior, what you just said, is people with stronger cores have less injury. That's a fact. And that fact becomes important to me. That's a fact I live by. I don't want to have injury down the line, right? But the fact is that having a strong core prevents injury. It strengthens the immune system. It gives your body better posture so people take you seriously. I mean, there's tons of benefits to it, right? You can put so many different facts behind that. And that might drive your reasoning. It attracts your wife. That's it. Like, instead of saying, I want abs, you can just say, being in shape, strengthens a marriage. And if your marriage is important to you, it's going to drive your behavior. right? Just like you do for your business, right? Your business is important to you. So when you know that KPIs, for example, might help your business, you go and run KPIs because you care about your business, right? And if you care about your marriage, you care about your wife, and you know that, hey, taking care of yourself and being healthy and taking care of your body is going to strengthen the chemistry in your marriage and strengthen the happiness in your marriage. That's a fact. That's just a fact. Like there's lots of research that can prove, people who stay healthy have better marriages. And by living with that fact as your input, your output's going to change. Okay. So it's what you put into the brain. Like if I say like, I want this, I want a good relationship, I want that, like, cool, but what is getting you there? What is getting you there? Why would your behavior shift? Right? So I literally write down a bunch of facts that drive my life, but they have to be, you want to put them in certain like categories so you know why you're writing down these facts. So I'll give you a few more examples of like what I have so you guys can get a better idea of like, because I have a whole book of them.
Ashley, can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what strikes me as the more difficult part of this whole thing is the analysis of digging deep and actually figuring out what the core belief is. So I think most people don't even realize what the core belief that is preventing them from getting what they want. So they might want to be a millionaire, for example, but deep inside they have a core belief that rich people are bad. They might have got that hearing their mom or dad complaining when they were 5 years old, and it became part of who they now are. And they're putting that out into the universe, and that's why rich people are bad. How can I possibly ever become rich? Any suggestions for how we can dig deep to find those core beliefs? Because I've tried to do it for myself, and it's tough to come up with them. And I know they're there.
It's very, very tough. A lot of it has to do with asking yourself like lots of questioning to reflective. It's literally what a therapist would do. Like a therapist never tells you what to do. They don't tell you how to feel. They literally go, so how do you feel about that? What did that experience feel like? They want to hear you say certain things. That's all therapy is. Like that's literally what they do. And that's why therapy changes people's behavior over time, because they're revamping. So I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I was in a relationship, and it was a relationship where I was cheated on. And I remember I could not for the life of me get over this guy. Like my friends were just like, why are you so, like, why do you keep picking at this? Like, he's just a piece of shit, like walk away. And I just couldn't walk away. Even if I wasn't like dating him, like I was just so obsessed with like continuing to talk and continuing to figure out like what was going on in his mind. And what I had realized was that I had a core belief that bad people don't exist. That was the core belief I lived by. Okay, and so when you have a core belief, there's two things that you do. One is you manipulate the world to fit the core belief, which is exactly what I was doing. I was like, there's no way he actually he just doesn't give a shit about me. Like, there's no way. Like, I must have done something must have happened, like, something must have caused his behavior. Like I just couldn't comprehend this idea that, like, someone was just being a piece of shit because they felt like being a piece of shit. Like, it didn't register in my brain. So I tried so hard to manipulate my environment to like fit that core belief. I was waiting for him to say something like, you know what, you're right. Like, this is what happened in my past, and so it did this. It's not because I'm not a piece of shit. Like, this is what happened. No, he just ended up being like a complete jerk. Like, he was just a jerk, right? So that's the one thing that we do is we manipulate our environment to fit the core belief. Okay. That's why you see people who believe that they should be rich, like kids my age, like they think that for some reason they're supposed to be these millionaires by age 23. And what they'll do is they'll start manipulating their environment to feel like that's true. So they'll start like buying fancy cars or like posting all these crazy things on Instagram. And like half these famous people I've met on Instagram are like broke, like they're completely broke. Like they're not who they say they are, but they're manipulating their world to fit that belief that they think should be true. Okay. Then the second way that you can respond to having a core belief and then living your world and realizing these two things are clashing. So I believe all people are good. All of a sudden somebody treats me like a dick. That's trauma. That's traumatic for me. I believe this, the world is showing me something else. Now I don't know what to believe. That's confusing for me. Okay? So I could sit there and manipulate it so I can keep believing my core belief, or I can change my core belief based on new presented data, right? Life showed me something, new information. I need to grow up. That's called being an adult. I need to grow up and I need to mature my belief system. Hold on, that's not true. Life is showing me something different. the moment I changed that and it registered to me that some people can just genuinely be bad and just stay bad until the day that they die because they just don't want to change, I got over him. That core belief allowed me to change my behavior. I let go. And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't think this person's going to change. Because I think now I'm realizing bad people do exist. I've done my research. I looked it up. I asked psychologists. Now I get it. Bad people exist. I need to leave this situation. Change my behavior, right? So you have to dig deep and say like it was very hard for me in that moment to be like, why am I going back to this person? I don't know. I like him. That's how we think it is. I just like him. But no, there's always a core belief under why you do what you do. Our behavior is made up of core beliefs. Okay, so when you're doing something and you know it's not giving you a good result, you have to dig and dig and dig and say, what is the core belief that is making me do this? It's coming from somewhere. It's not coming from nowhere. If you're getting bad outcomes, your input's bad. You gotta question that, right? So for like I've this broken down by like different topics and stuff. So I'll go to, let's just do debate and disagreement. So I have a bunch of principles under debate and disagreement. I'll give you an example. One of them is speaking logic to someone that is speaking emotion is like responding to French with Chinese. They're two different languages. Completely two different languages. It's true. It's like if somebody is speaking to me from, I'll give you an example of this. You know, you have a wife or a husband and they come up to you like, I feel like you're not spending enough time with me, right? That's a very emotional statement. I feel like you're not spending enough time with me. You can answer with logic. You'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm here every day. I literally see you 24/7. Do you think that's gonna work? No.
Nope.
You're still gonna feel annoyed because they're trying to express their feelings to you. So you can literally sit there and tell the truth. You could speak logic, but it's completely ineffective because you're speaking Chinese to someone who's speaking French in that moment. It's a different language, and you have to learn those two languages. So that's a principle I live by. And I remember when I learned this principle because I'm a very logical woman. Like for I don't know, people my age are not usually as logical. I'm extremely logical. And I used to live my life, especially being a scientist, so like when people say things, like they would say something and I would always be like, well, actually this, actually that. And I'd get like, I personally value the truth. So I don't mind when people do that to me, but I quickly realized that like not everyone likes that because they're speaking from a place of emotion. Okay, so even if somebody's saying, oh, my boyfriend this, and you're like, actually, no, that's not true at all. That conversation is going to go out into the trash can. Like it's ineffective. It's completely ineffective. It's the same thing as like somebody smoking a cigarette and you going up to them a million times a day saying, you know, cigarettes cause cancer. Cigarettes cause cancer. They know. Smoking a cigarette is an emotional decision. It's a different language.
Not a surprise.
It's what?
Not a surprise. Smoking.
Yeah, it's not like they know that already. Like it's not effective. But if you speak the language of emotion and you start saying like, you know, how's life? Like what's going on in your life? And you start digging into their emotions in that sense, that's probably more effective to getting someone to quit. When you make someone feel better, they do better, right? That's the language of emotion. So sitting there and responding to an emotional behavior with a logical piece of advice, ineffective. Okay. So that became a principle of mine because I was like, why are my outcomes bad here? Like I'm literally speaking the truth and no one's listening. Like this is not the outcome I'm trying to get. So I had to question, you know, the underlying belief. Well, I believed that everyone values the truth. The truth is more important than anything else. But then I challenged it enough to the point where I realized it's actually completely unimportant to emotion. Someone who's speaking emotion doesn't give a shit about the truth. They don't. Like somebody's telling me about, or I'll use me as an example. When my friends used to tell me he doesn't treat you well, I don't care. I'm coming from a place of emotion right now. Talk to me in my language. Why do you care about him? What do you think you need in this moment? Do you think that you need to have another conversation with him? That's the language I need to get over it. Not the language of, okay, but he cheated on you. I know that already. That's not going to help, right? So you want to be able to, that's how like I come to my principles. Like I'll go through this example and I'm like, I'm not getting a good result here. Like I'm trying to be honest and transparent. So I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but my result is bad. That means my input is broken. My input was truth matters above all else.
I have a
Sounds-
question, Ashley.
Yeah.
So earlier we talked about the two main driving forces, emotions and then logic, and then we talked a little bit about intellectual empathy, right? Being logical meaning deploying empathy, intellectual empathy, and then it's creating a little bit of confusion when someone is, if their behavior is emotional. Now we're saying that responding to them logically is going to be completely counter. There's no connection. They
No.
won't understand. So I guess my question is then how effective would it be? Well, then my answer is never mind. I answered my own question. Then it's not going to be effective deploying intellectual empathy.
You can deploy intellectual empathy. Intellectual empathy actually is exactly what you would deploy, because you would say, I don't feel I don't feel what this person's feeling right now, but I know that this is going to be more effective. I'll tell you one thing, majority of my empathy is intellectual empathy.
But that's how we define logic, which confuses me.
Yeah, but it's logic. I don't think empathy is logic, but it's logical to use empathy, if that makes sense.
I see.
In that moment. So it's like, it's the logical choice to deploy empathy, but empathy is an emotional language.
I understand now.
Yeah. But nice, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so let me go through one more principle so you guys can kind of see how I learned these, because I think that was a really good question. Here's another one. An argument that roots from judgment has no credibility. I live by that principle, okay? So whenever I'm in an argument with somebody, disagreement, whatever, again, this is under the disagreement section of my book. When I remember I had an argument with someone about abortion. Personally, I'm against abortion. I'm pretty open about it. I don't really get emotional about those stances. But I understand in some cases, it's important to, let a woman have her choice in that sense, okay? So I was having a conversation with someone who was essentially just attacking a person that was next to me and their stance on abortion. And they were basically saying, well, you don't care. It's two people. I'm sitting there and there's two people, one that has a similar stance, one that has a completely opposing stance. The one person with the opposing stance is like, well, you don't care about women. You don't care about their rights. You don't care about this. And the other person is saying, well, you don't care about the baby. You don't care about life. You don't care. Which both of those arguments are horrible because you're attacking the person. You're not attacking the actual argument at hand. So they're both attacking each other, and they have the same argument. They're using the same argument against each other. You don't care about women. You don't care about a baby. You don't care. You're a piece of crap. You're a piece of crap. You get nowhere with that argument. Okay. So for me, I learned quickly that on any debated topic, an argument that roots from judgment, they lose credibility completely. I'm looking at this one and I'm like, that's not really a good argument. Now I don't really trust you. You sound super biased. It sounds like you're just being defensive. So you're attacking the person. And then the other one's saying the same thing. And I'm like, now you sound like you're defensive. You both have horrible arguments. Usually the answer to something is somewhere near the middle, right? And so when you come in and you have a really good debate and say, okay, what are we actually asking here? Because if we value the same thing, we're trying to debate on the same thing, we probably can get to the same information. And we probably, if we can narrow the question down so it's something that we're really trying to argue, which oftentimes in an argument like that is what's considered life, right? Then we can have a nice, clear discussion and we can mitigate the argument, right? So that becomes a more productive answer where both people usually win. Okay, so even in an argument that I would be saying, hey, I disagree because X, Y, Z, I believe this is life, I believe that's life, whatever. There's also definitely, if we are arguing the same thing, we can say, however, I think resources should be deployed here. I think this should be deployed here. I think we should care about women and we should care about the fact that they now have to live with that. And we should care about, there's more of a productive conversation where both people are heard, where both people can usually come to the middle somewhere. Because now we're looking at the same facts, we're looking at the same outcome that we want, right? Or can we agree that we both want any sort of life to not be killed? Actual life. Can we agree to that? Yes? Okay. Now let's define what life is. Let's look at the facts. Let's go, together as a team, let's go look at the facts. That is a much more effective way to have a discussion. So for me, that became a principle in that one situation. And as I was watching them attack each other, I was like, okay, they both lost credibility in my eyes. Like, even if you have the same opinion as me, you completely lost credit. I would never put that person up in a debate. So those are the types of principles that you see how it's written as a fact. An argument that roots from judgment has no credibility. That's a fact. So I live my life by that fact now. Now when I go into any argument, I don't care if it's, if I'm with a spouse one day and I'm super pissed at them, I can't stand looking at them, I will never resort to something that attacks the person. Like, you never do this. You never, whatever, right? There's a different way to say it. There's a different way to say it that's going to be heard better. It's going to be more received, well received, right? That's how you improve outcomes in your life. Because the goal is that the person hears what I'm saying and changes the behavior. So if that's the outcome I want, attacking the person is not going to get there. If the goal in a debate is to prove a point, I'm not going to prove a point by calling someone a piece of shit the whole time through my argument. I don't know in what world that's effective. It's not, right? So you want to make sure, but people do it all the time, right? And they do it because their input in their mind, they don't have a clear fact that guides their words. So they're just living off of emotion in the moment because they have no logic. They haven't built up their logic. So principles build up your logic so that it can override your emotion. But if you don't have a library of logic that to live by, then you just live by emotion. And like I said, emotion's 50%. So you're going to be 50% good outcomes, 50% shitty ones. And if that's how you want to live your life, by all means. But if you don't, then I would really take the time to build up a good sense of logic, a good library of facts that can help you navigate your world through your behavior. It'd be a really, really important one.
Ashley, is that what they call mental models? Is that basically what that is?
Yes, it's exactly what that is. In the investment world, they call it mental models too.
Right. I love it.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. People develop mental models so that they can guide their behavior.
Yeah.
Exactly that. I'll give you one more if you guys want.
Yeah.
Let's see. Using the word but erases everything that you said before it when you apologize. That's another fact I live by, right? You say, I'm sorry, but you just erased everything you said. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Say, I'm sorry, period. That's it. That's an apology. Or I'm sorry.
That's your favorite.
Because, sorry?
Sorry, that was Kevin's favorite. He hates when people say but.
Because it just negates everything. I don't blame him. It negates everything you just said.
Yep.
You're right, but I understand, but then you don't understand. Because if you understood, you would have just left it there. So you don't really understand. Like, it erases everything you said before it completely. Right?
Yeah, Robert said the word and fixes that, but it takes a lot of mental practice to
discipline.
Speak it all the time and think it all
It depends, even how you use the word and, it can depend. Because for some, I think of some situation where you say like, I'm sorry, and I was just doing this. Like, you're still kind of negating what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, you're just so much better off saying, like, I'm sorry for doing X, Y, Z.
Period.
Period. I want you to know what was going on in my mind when I did it so that it can help you forgive me. That's a better way to say it.
The core belief is don't negate what you say. Say it.
Well, the core belief is when you use the word but, it erases everything you said before. So if your purpose is to erase everything you said before and use it, right? Like, if that's your goal, then you can use it. But if your goal is to make someone feel understood, or to feel like your remorse, or to feel whatever, then don't use the word but. Like, I'll be in like a corporate meeting. So I was like, yeah, I think that's a really good idea, but with blah 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 blah, and I'm like, so you don't think it's a good idea? Like, you just don't. Like, you literally just went against what you just said. It's just better off if you just said straight up, like, I don't think that's gonna work because of this. You'll have better culture. People will trust your words more. Like, when you massage a sentence like that, like, you lost my trust at that point. Like, I just don't. Your words are mushy. I don't like that, personally. And we see it even. That principle follows everywhere for me. I'll be reading an annual report. I do a lot of not a lot, but I read annual reports for companies like probably like 6 of them a day. I read them all day. And like, you'll see when they're like talking about their risks during like earnings season, they'll be talking about like their risks, and they're like, yeah, you know, like I was reading Boeing the other day. They had like a horrible accident. Like, you know, we realized that the engine failed and blah, 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 but we blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. Take the ownership. You'll build trust with investors so much more if you just say, we messed up. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Right? Not, yeah, we messed up, but it was really likely to happen at some point because blah, blah, blah. No. Because now you're dodging the accountability as a public company, right? That looks bad. So I carry that, not just in my personal relationships, not in my corporate relationships. I follow that in my investment world. I follow that when I'm judging everyone. Who here is accountable? Can people be accountable? Or do people have enough of a handle on their emotions to put a period at the end of that sentence? To take accountability for things, or to own up to their wrongs, or do they always have to put a justification behind it? That's a very important thing for me, right? So those are the types of facts that I live by, you know, and again, those were just in terms of like disagreements, and I have a book of them in all areas of life, but it's really important to have those, because if you don't have them, your outcomes are just going to be the opposite of what you want. And to your selfish interest, it's worth your time to write these things down and challenge those inner thoughts. Does anyone else want to share, by the way? Because I know only a few people shared.
You're intimidating, Ashley. That's what happens. You ripped up my abs that way, and now no one wants to. So I wonder why people aren't speaking now. So what's the core belief behind that one? Fear.
Here.
Don't mess with her.
Yeah,
Don't mess with her. She'll rip you apart.
I got one.
Core belief is being wrong in front of people makes me stupid. Something like that.
Right.
That's a
Whereas
good one.
people who did speak were just like, I don't care if I
don't care if I look
I think
stupid.
being wrong is growth, right? Like that, those two different beliefs right there, like could guide people's behavior. Like maybe when, you know, Kevin and Robert spoke, they were just like, well, you know what? She tells me like being wrong is where the growth happens. And while everyone else is like, I can't be wrong, right? Like you see how those small beliefs can drive people's behavior. And once you start watching people's behavior, you're like, oh, well, I know what their library of logic looks like. So somebody change it right now. Somebody change their core belief. Speak up.
Rusty, where you at, G?
I mean, you kind of said what I was going to say. I want abs like Des Harris, but
That's funny.
You better not want, G. You better change that core belief.
and that's where I think Ashley kind of put some clarity into it. It's not so much of like what you want, but what are the facts that you need to do to get to what you need. And, you know, like I need a strong core in order to be healthy. And if I'm healthy, that will get to me to that level of having those abs. So that's an interesting mind shift of how you look at things. Not so much I want this, but I need to do X, Y, and Z to get to that, to get that need or that want.
Here's the difference between I want and then the underlying core beliefs. You need to know your outcome that you're looking for in order to build the underlying beliefs. When you say I want abs, you're stopping at the outcome.
Right.
You're not building your logic to feed that behavior. You're just saying, oh, this is the outcome I want. And then you're just stopping there.
So I remember, Robert, earlier, you said that you wanted to have a more healthy life. And I remember, you know, she asked you the question why. And I know we had this conversation, is you wanted to see your kids grow up, right? So you wanted to have a more healthy, nutritious life. That's the why behind why you actually want to be healthy. Which is a really good core, right? That's a good value. That should be your answer.
The value would be like, sorry, was someone speaking?
No, I just agreed with him.
Oh, yeah. And it's like the value in itself, like that would be the outcome. Like the outcome is I want to be healthy enough to see my kids, you know, grow up, and I want to, you know, yada, so on and so forth. But the core belief can be something along the lines of children who have their parents around grow up to be healthier individuals, mentally, physically, so on and so forth, right? Or you know, when children don't have their parents around or their parents are unhealthy, it can really damage a child, right? That's the underlying core beliefs that you're just like, I'm not putting my kids in that. Like, there's no chance. Like, I'm living by that fact now. That's a fact that's important to me and I live by it. That's going to drive your behavior to be healthier. And it's going to give you that outcome, right? Another one, that stops a lot of people is, I need to work out every day to be healthy. I need to eat extremely clean every day, boring foods to be healthy. That used to be a belief of mine. Now my belief is I can eat whatever I want in a nice balance and still look good and lean and be an athlete that I am. And, this figure skating is one of those sports where like, my coach has told me millions of times over, you need to lose weight, you need to do this, you need to make this weight class to get this jump or whatever. But in my head, like I've switched that over to like, I can eat whatever I want, right? If I'm this athletic, like it's not that much work to be healthy. So I had to really do I was hearing all those voices and he was building that world in my head where I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I should be eating like plain chicken every day, like every other athlete. And then I just did my own research to build my own sense of logic. And what I realized is it's the opposite. Like you can eat a piece of cake at night or whatever and still be getting all the nutrients you need. And I started realizing that like, hold on, cake and like whole wheat bread are actually metabolized the exact same way. Like the exact same way, right? You probably can have a smaller piece of cake compared to having 2 slices of bread, but it doesn't mean you can't have cake. A carb is a carb. It's a molecule. It's literally going to be metabolized the same exact way, right? It might have extra sugars inside, but that's going to be metabolized. But whole wheat bread also has sugar, right? So it's like maybe you just need to shorten the portion of the cake. Doesn't mean you can't have the cake. It's literally metabolized the exact same way. Your body doesn't know the difference between a piece of bread and a piece of cake. It only knows the quantity. So if that cake has more of carbs, then it's going to know that. But it doesn't know whether a carb molecule is going to be broken down as a carb molecule. Like it's the same thing. So once I built up my sense of logic, I started eating healthier, which meant I was able to enjoy a long-term view of being healthy because I was able to diversify my diet and all of a sudden my outcomes broadened. I was healthier. I was getting leaner. I was building more muscle and I was getting more fit and my performance in sports got better. So again, it's the way that you build your logic, but you got to put time into thinking of that. Like I literally had to sit there and like do my own research to figure out like this can't be that hard. Like the only way to be lean is to eat like bread, like that's whole wheat and like plain chicken every day, like with salad. I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way that that's true, So I questioned it. I questioned it. And I got to a better result. And so now I had pizza for lunch and I'm still lean with my abs and everything because I just portion it. Like that doesn't make a difference for me. So it's what you put in is what you get out. And it's really, really important. And even for you, Rob, it's like, if that's an underlying belief that you have where it's like, I don't want to eat healthy, like, okay, then don't. Eat a little bit less or work out a little bit more because energy is energy. And at the end of the day, you lose weight when your energy intake is less than your energy outtake. That's it. I don't care where it comes from. Like that's how you lose weight. Energy in versus energy out.
But again, athletes, to me, it strikes me as it's not just what his core belief is about wanting to be healthy. It's about what core belief he has that's conflicting with that's preventing him from taking whatever action he needs to become. Seems like that's the first step. You got to do that analysis, figure that out, and then you can only tackle it by changing the belief, right?
Yeah. You can go either way, really, because like even when you find like the good ones, like if I had a core belief that like I had to eat like super lean in order to like be fit, and then as I'm doing my research to build up my library, and then all of a sudden I realized like, oh, like I don't have to do this, then it's gonna make me realize, I did have my core belief because that didn't make me feel good reading that. Like that made me feel a certain way, So then you're like, oh, well, that's how I discovered that I had this core. I didn't even know I had this core belief, but like maybe that is stopping me from like doing that or whatever. And a lot of it comes from just talking it out, like asking the question why. Like, like I'd see her for 20 minutes and ask Rob, like, why aren't you? Well, I don't really feel like, I like my cake. I'm like, there it is. He just said it, right? So if he told me that, I'd be like, well, why can't you have cake and diet? Like, why is that a thing? And he'll be like, I mean, I don't know, like, that's just a thing, like, and then that's where you kind of figure out, you're like, well, I challenge you on that. Is that true? Is it that you can't have cake when you're on a diet? I personally don't agree, but you have to play that for yourself. You know, you have to be able to, sometimes you can do it with a friend, but it's really good to learn how to do that yourself, because you can only do that when you find an outcome that you don't like and you're like, why? Keep asking yourself why, and you'll usually figure out like where it is. It comes out, like, you know, how Kevin's like, you know, I want to make all this money. Okay, why? Well, I want to, you know, be able to retire. Okay, so why aren't you getting it? Well, I'm spending a lot of money. Why? Well, I think that these things are shiny and cool in the moment or whatever. Okay, so why is that more important? Right? So you have to keep asking yourself why. You'll find it. You'll find it in there. It's just a very reflective process. It's the same like how you kind of like run like a imaging test on the body to see if what's going on inside, or a blood test or whatever, right? You gotta check in with what's going on with your mind as well.
Ashley, you're incredible. I know that we're a little over on time, but
that's okay.
Amazing.
We can. I'm open to answering any questions if anyone has any questions.
Ashley, I have to invite you to one of my girls' nights. We can all drink together and have a good time.
You're in California. Where are you located?
We're in California, Los Angeles.
California? Great. I think I'm coming to California in a few weeks, so.
I'm going to give you my number.
There you go.
Where do you live, Ashley?
New York.
Oh, you're in New York. Right.
My ex-hometown. See, we have already things to talk about.
Where in New York did you live?
Brooklyn, Long Island, everywhere.
Everywhere. So I was in Long Island, now Manhattan.
Oh, nice.
You know, Ashley holds a class once a week on Tuesdays at noon, our time, and it's for 1 hour.
At 2 your time. Two your time.
I'm sorry, 2 our time, correct. So inquire about it if you want to learn more. She's incredible. She's, you know, even more than a great presenter, she's an incredible human being. We truly appreciate you, Ashley. You're an amazing person, and we're so proud to have you back again and to be able to speak with you again, to hear from you, because you end up we're going to use everything that you just spoke about for the next couple of years now. We're just going to be speaking your language, and we gain so much from it. So thank you for being such a giver, helping us out.
If there's one thing that I can recommend, it's really just live by your principles, but spend a heck of a lot of time defining what they are. And your life, I can promise you, if those principles are good, your life will follow. Like that's a promise. I put $1 million on that promise, that if your principles are good, your life will be good. That cannot go wrong.
We need to have you on the regular.
One day.
Yeah.
Hippocampus.
Hippocampus.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we could use you as a president one day, Ashley. Think about it.
That's so funny. That's not the first time I've heard it, but I'd have to see the world of politics, and you know, I even when it comes to like when my Instagram blew up, I was just like, I hate this attention. Like I really just don't. I'm not an attention person, but hey, if we have a horrible one in place, and if there's, I'll say this, if there's something that I think I could do that no one else can do, then I would run.
Amen.
That's the only thing that would get me to run. World of politics. You know, the word politics is like comes poly, which is like more than one, and then ticks are like blood-sucking creatures. Like a bunch of, that's politics. That's what the word means in my head.
Oh my god, that's classic.
What is your Instagram so we can follow?
It's Ashley Zahabian, and like you said, I do teach a class every Tuesday at 2:00 in California time, and at 5:00 Eastern time, depending where you are. But it's about 60 to 90 minutes. It's a group of so far right now it's about 30 of us. So each session about 15 people show up every week, and we go back and forth between emotional intelligence and then just business and really understanding business. And thank you, Rusty, for posting my Instagram in the chat. But we go back and forth each week between business and emotional intelligence, and it's just like this, very interactive. We do some activities and things like that. So if it is something that you think would help, just send me a message on Instagram, and we can discuss it from there. But I really appreciate you guys having me here. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message me anytime. And again, thank you, Arash, for setting all this up.
Powerful.
Yeah, and Ashley, I know a lot of us are huge fans.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
Action item for this for next class is, what did you learn, and how will you apply it? So let's put it up on the CRM. And again, Ashley, you know, you leave us with so many nuggets that we're so happy to have you, and we were so lucky to be listening in today. So thank you again.
You're very welcome, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and weekend, and hopefully I'll connect with you guys on Instagram.
I definitely will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Ashley.
You too.
Have a
Bye.
good one.